What's up guys, Enkiri here, and today we got another conjugate style training vlog coming right at you. This time it's going to be we're going to cover a week of lower body training, and I got a pretty good mix of things in here today. In the first session we got some sandbag work, which I followed up with some heavy zombie squats, and then a little bit of pistol squatting after that. We got some Copenhagen planks and some hip flexor work as well. And then in the second training session later on in the week, it's going to be volume work on the SSB squat, some kettlebell swings, a little bit of hip thrusting, and then not shown in the videos, a bit of running that I did at the end. I closed out the session with a pretty easy 1 mile run, right around about a 7-minute pace, nothing earth shattering, but I haven't done much of that type of training, that type of running in recent years. In recent history, I've been doing some tempo runs where I've been going about 200 meters per run, trying to keep them mostly under sub 30-second runs, and I've been enjoying those, but they're fucking brutal, man. So, but in general, I've really just been trying to increase some of my running distances lately because I want to work more on my conditioning a little bit more this year. But that kind of work, it's not really conducive to filming, unfortunately, at least not for me. So I'm not sure how much of it will actually make it onto the camera and into these videos. Anyway, what you're seeing here is me popping my sandbag cherry. So this is the first time that I've ever messed around with a sandbag. I got this bad boy from Titan Fitness recently, and it's been a lot of fun so far, man. All I wanted to do here was just shoulder it. I wasn't trying to do anything else. I was just trying to figure out how to pick the thing up and get a heavy bag onto my shoulders, because it's a little bit different from other implements that I've used. It's definitely different from shouldering a barbell. And then from there, once you kind of figure out how to shoulder it, then you'll be able to walk with it or do whatever you want to do, right? But you got to get it there first, and you have to learn how to do that efficiently so you don't waste too much energy. And so that's really what I was going for here. And I tried a couple different things along the way. You'll see that some of the reps end up being smoother than others because I don't really have a technique yet. I'm just experimenting, and sometimes I put my hands in the wrong place, and then I couldn't really heave against the bag like that to pull it up to the shoulders. Most of the time I was really just struggling to figure out how to grip it and where to grip it, and I really just couldn't figure out how to grab onto the damn thing to really get optimal power into it. And I could feel that there was a lot more there and that I could do it a lot better and a lot more efficiently. I really couldn't figure out how to do it right and how to really unleash my full power into it. So it's a work in progress. We'll get better, and I'll keep you guys posted on that as I do. Next up was the zombie squat. Now here, this is my heavy slot, my max effort component for my conjugate style training program. And so here I'm just working my way up to a heavy single. I end up going up in 50-pound jumps here, right up until I get to the top set where I stop. I take a smaller jump there, but I can do that. I can take pretty big jumps overall on this exercise just because I'm pretty comfortable with it. I'm pretty comfortable with front squats in general, and I have a pretty good idea of what I'm capable of on any given day based on how the ramp up sets are feeling and how the bar is moving and all that good stuff. So I worked up to 335 here, and then I threw on another 30 pounds, and I ended up hitting a pretty easy top single with 365 pounds, and that's really not too bad for me. My best ever on this lift is 405. On the zombie squat is 405, the no hands front squat, and I think I probably could have gutted out 385 here if I really wanted to, but I wasn't all about it. I wasn't trying to go that heavy here, so I stopped there at 365. I would say that the top lift was actually pretty easy, but I did end up getting a little bit lightheaded right about in the middle of the rep. You know, sometimes the bar, it kind of catches you in the wrong place on these front squats, right? Or you set up maybe a little bit too close to the bar, and then you kind of start feeling a little bit faint once you start exerting yourself. So you don't really feel it when you're standing there, but once you start exerting yourself, you might notice that you kind of set up wrong and it's starting to catch up to you, and you might start feeling a little bit faint. So you got to be careful with these. You don't want to black out in the middle of the rep. That would be a bad thing. So unfortunately it didn't happen to me. I got through it pretty easily because it just wasn't that hard of a lift. So I was able to finish the rep out, rack it, and then I just kind of took a quick breather right there on the rack, and then I moved on to the pistol squats after that. Now with the pistols here, I kind of botched the camera angle. That's my bad, but you guys will live. I promise you I'm sitting on one leg at the bottom of these. My other foot's not hitting the ground, but these are coming along pretty nicely. They made pretty good progress initially, pretty rapid progress initially in my first few weeks of doing them. At this point, they are kind of starting to feel a little bit stagnant. Mostly, it takes me a little bit longer to get the left hip sufficiently warm and sufficiently mobilized such that I can hit these reps, that I can get through these sets on the left leg. The right hip is basically pretty much good to go from the start as soon as I finish up my heavy work. But the left hip, it just requires a little bit of extra attention, a little bit more mobilization. So I'm still working on it. I'm still I want to keep things in better balance. I want to make that left hip a little bit more equivalent to how the right hip feels, just in a general sense. But as it is, I'm just doing 3 sets here per week, 10 reps per set. So the workload's not crazy. I kind of want to start loading it eventually, but like I said, like I alluded to, I'm getting a little bit bored of this exercise. So we'll see how much longer it sticks around in the program. And then I wrapped up this workout with a couple more accessories, just some cable hip flexion and some Copenhagen planks. For the hip flexion, I'm just trying to keep a relatively straight leg here, which gives the movement quite a different feel from some of the bent knee versions. I definitely prefer performing these hip flexor isolation exercises with the pulley system these days rather than using free implements like the monkey foot that I have, because the pulley work, it just feels smoother and it just feels better overall, in my opinion. Now for the Copenhagen planks, I am using the bent leg version here. I actually progressed this in my more recent history. I've actually progressed this to a dynamic movement where I'm using a straight leg and I'm performing dynamic hip adduction on each rep, and that kind of gives it more of a focus on the adductors and less of a focus on the planking aspect. Whereas when you're holding the isometric, I would say that there's more of a focus on the actual plank. But so kind of using that dynamic version, it lets you change the emphasis up a little bit. So I want to keep using a mix of both of these things going forward. Here though, in this session, I'm using the bent knee and I'm doing the iso, just like I said. And I'm just trying to get a strong isometric contraction through the inner thigh and just hold that for the duration of the set. Really just try not to move for the duration of the set and hold that position well. And I got the sandbag on my hip there to add a little bit of extra resistance, just to make things a little bit more challenging. I did speed this footage up, but I think that I was holding each set for about 45 seconds or up to a minute, and it ends up being pretty tough by the end there. My leg always ends up shaking by the end of those holds, and my adductors actually end up being pretty damn sore the next day. And that pretty much wraps up session number 1. On to session number 2 now, just a couple days later, and this workout is pretty minimalist and pretty straightforward. I lead off with the swings, then I move on to the SSB squat, and then I finish up with the hip thrust. Now, on each exercise, I'm just doing 3 sets, and I'm working my way up to a challenging set of 10 reps on the final set. I start off with an easy weight for set 1, I add a little bit of weight onto the bar for set 2, and then I try to finish up with something tough or challenging on set 3. And then after the weight room work, like I said earlier, I put on my sneakers and then I did that little quick run, that quick mile run, just to finish up the workout. So leading off with the swings here, my working sets were 150, 200 and 250 pounds. I like to use a mix of different loads on this exercise because that way you get to experience multiple different segments along that force velocity curve within the same workout, similar to how doing loaded jumps at different resistances still have value even though the jump height is going to change based on how much resistance you're going up against. I made an Instagram post talking about this concept. So the more weight that you get on there, the lower you're going to jump, and the less weight, the higher you're going to jump. But each one has its own value, has its own value in a different sort of way because it changes the amount of velocity as the resistance goes up, essentially. So here is a similar concept, just like how the swing height changes based on how heavy the implement is, but on each different set, but each different level of loading offers its own different sort of value. So that's fun stuff. And then after the swings, I move on to the SSB squat just to get in some volume work for the legs. And this workout is actually from a couple months ago. I think it took place either in late January or early February. So here, I was still pretty unadjusted to the safety squat bar. I wasn't comfortable with it at this point, and so I wasn't really sure what to expect with this exercise. So I started off very conservatively. I just used 200 pounds for 10 reps on set number 1. I made a pretty decent jump up to 250 for set number 2, and then I finished up with 300 pounds on set number 3. Pretty tough at that point, but in reality had a lot of reps in the tank still. I did a couple weird sorts of things during the set. I did some, you'll see, I did some weird arm flails and not really being sure what to do with the handles during the descent and the ascent, or what to do with my upper back sometimes. But overall, the set felt challenging, but it ended up having a lot of reps in reserve by the end of it. I think I probably could have done 320 pounds for 10 reps here, probably pretty easily, just as well. And I think that ultimately trying to work my way up probably into something in that 350 or 360 or even 370 pound range for a set of 10 is probably going to be a good interim goal with this bar, especially as I gain proficiency with it, as it is a pretty good bit different from using a straight bar in my experience. And then this session wraps up with the good old hip thrust. It's the same deal here. I'm working my way up to a tough set of 10 reps. I start off easy and then I build up from there. So here I went 315 on set 1, 365 on set 2, and then 405 on set 3, and overall it was good stuff. I could take this one a little bit heavier than that, but lately I've been doing them from a deficit, actually about a 3 or 4 inch deficit, which is significantly more challenging than doing them from the floor. And with that big deficit, I'm still working my way up in the mid to high 200s for sets of 12 to 15 reps. So it's quite a bit different. It actually has a pretty different feel to it from doing them on the floor. And there's a time and a place for loading this exercise up really heavy, but I've already explained my theories on this movement several times, and I think that there's almost always going to be more to gain from it by focusing on how you are moving rather than how much weight you're moving. So I always try to keep that in the back of my mind when I'm performing this exercise. Anyway, that about wraps it up for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you found it informative, and I hope that it gives you some good ideas to implement into your own training moving forward. And if you enjoy this type of content and you'd like to support the production of more of it, then be sure to pick up one of my training templates off my website or just sign up for my Patreon. All the links are in the description. Please remember to smash the like button before you go and leave me some love in the comments as well. Keep training hard, guys. I'll catch you all next time.